Restoring the arsenal of democracy is one of the most important tasks I think Congress and our nation can embark on in the coming years. Our industrial deterrence is based on production and the ability to innovate at scale. America needs to do both. As the committee no doubt has seen in its recent war game, we've reached an inflection point. Our industrial deterrence is no longer credible. This is a far cry from the defense industrial base that facilitated our victory in World War II. The production prowess of the arsenal of democracy is well known, but it also may have been the most significant driver of innovation ever created. Processes and ideas put in place in the 1960s and 1970s, gradually and incrementally, like barnacles on a wooden ship, undermined our defense industrial base and innovation system over the course of multiple decades. Central planning, scientific management, and a great deal of hubris dissolved the links to the underlying commercial industrial base and then shattered the importance of time constraints to innovation. Since we've been doing this now for so long, our current acquisition and budgeting system seems normal and the right way to do things. It is not. The traditional acquisition system has seen decision time to start a program and set it on contract rise from less than a year in the 1950s to closer to 9 years today. While time to initial operational capability or new innovation in the field has gone from an additional 4 years to 10 to 20 years. We will not win with this system. What is now required is no less than a complete restructuring of the processes, incentives, and culture behind our defense requirements, acquisition, contracting, budgeting, and technology control systems. This will require a shift to the time-based innovation approach that emulates the practices of the venture capital market of today or of a defense program from the 1950s. The first step is needed to restore a sense of urgency and time. The government must pivot to the mindset that we are now in an emergency, just as the committee is saying, and that we need to act like it. It is important for Congress, after understanding how we got here, to act boldly and urgently to address the failings of the current system. This is a whole-of-nation effort that is much bigger than just immediately ramping up a few existing defense production lines, although that is vitally needed first step, especially in shipbuilding and munitions. To restore industrial deterrence, America must attempt to recreate the methods of our earlier success, and then just as we did in World War II, combine them with new sources of innovation ideas emanated from the commercial sector. Only then will we have established a new arsenal of democracy. Thank you.
Our recent simulation exposed the crisis facing our defense industrial base and the urgent need to expand our capacity before it's too late. It seems clear, though, that our lack of prioritization of defense spending and decades of purchases of minimum sustaining rates of key munitions in particular, we've allowed the defense industrial base to atrophy almost to the point of no return. What level of national effort will it take to turn this around, and what kind of demand signal do Congress and the Pentagon need to provide industry to make this happen?
Thank you, sir. A consistent one. I think that's the most important thing that we'll learn in these type of industrial base, particularly munitions, is that the budget line for munitions has essentially been used as a bill payer for decades, and it has hollowed out the sub-tier of the munitions industry. We need a long-term commitment in funds, and I'm not going to say how much we're talking about, but I'm just saying we need a long-term consistent commitment that industry can plan on, the government can plan on, the government arsenals can plan on, and that we can actually start putting in place the investments that are necessary to improve the sub-tier suppliers that are so important in the munitions industry.
Dr. Greenwalt, in a conflict with China, the tyranny of distance is a major challenge to us. The U.S. does not have the necessary infrastructure capabilities to build or service and maintain our ships over in the far Pacific, but I think our allies can help. Can you comment on some of those potential opportunities?
No, I think as we ponder this problem in many ways, not just the Indo-PACOM theaters, we need to be looking at how can we better leverage our allies. In other words, it's just the math. You know, the math in population, the math in ability to defense budgets, bringing them together is what has allowed us to compete with China faster. So absolutely, the allied forces, the allied capabilities in Australia, in Korea, in Japan, We need to better leverage those. We need to look at maintenance facilities. We need to look at co-production of whether it's munitions in Australia or shipbuilding in Korea. We need to get numbers as fast as we can. I agree with Chris, it's going to take us decades to get there, but we need to start now, and we need to start thinking in a different way because we need to get the numbers up. And I think that's really important. What that's going to require is changes in the way we do export controls, the changes in the way we cooperate with our allies, all the processes that keep us, that limit the time to do that. We need to overcome some of those and do that very quickly.
Would it be easier to simplify? Say like, I want to sink Chinese ships. Show me how to sink Chinese ships. I want to penetrate Chinese air defenses. You know, companies, could you come up with something? Instead of trying to tell the company what it is that I want to, how I want to penetrate Chinese air defenses, that maybe there are completely different ways that the folks that we have, the Pentagon, haven't even thought about. Because who in NASA would ever think, hey, it'd be a good idea to grab that booster out of the air with chopsticks, right? Do you think anybody would ever put that in a requirement? No. Hey, we'd like to actually land the booster. Nobody in NASA would ever think about that, right? So maybe the same thing happens at the Pentagon, all right? They don't know. How are they sinking Russian ships in the Black Sea? Well, they're using little drones, okay? And they're sinking multi-million-dollar, Russian ships with these, things that cost, tens of thousands of dollars. So is that a problem at the Pentagon?
I think it's a huge problem, and frankly, it's how we used to do things. I think there's a misreading of history going on. That is the way the Department of Defense used to approach problems in the 1950s, all right? And geared on to give me a broad general statement, and we'll compete a bunch of different alternatives, not on a contract, but alternatives way of doing exactly that. And we got away from that. As Chris talked about McNamara coming in, we centralized. We went to we adopted the Soviet system in our management structure in the Department of Defense, and because of that, we now think, and because we won the Cold War, remember that, we actually that there's a thought that these processes actually work. They don't work anywhere else in the world except competing against the one-time Soviet Union in the 1980s when it was falling apart. That's when we won.